Welcome back to Deep Things of God. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into one of the most dramatic stories in the Bible, the incredible journey of Elijah and his confrontation with the prophets of Baal. Joining me are Marion and Rita and Kim. Guys, this isn't just a story about fire falling from heaven. It's about courage, truth, and choosing whom you'll trust.
Glad to be here, Alex. Elijah's story isn't just about miracles. It's about standing for truth when almost everyone around you believes something different. And it's one of the clearest examples in Scripture of God proving his power over false gods. Every part of this story carries historical and spiritual significance.
Exactly. Even people who aren't familiar with the Bible have probably heard about fire from heaven, but the events leading up to that miracle are just as important.
Let's start with the background. Elijah appears during the reign of King Ahab, one of Israel's most wicked kings. Ahab married Queen Jezebel, who came from Sidon and actively promoted the worship of Baal throughout Israel.
Baal wasn't just another idol. The Canaanites believed Baal controlled rain, thunderstorms, crops, and fertility. Since Israel depended on agriculture, many people thought worshiping Baal would guarantee good harvests. That made Israel's spiritual decline even more serious. Instead of trusting the God who brought them out of Egypt, many people blended God's worship with pagan practices. Elijah's mission was to call the nation back to the covenant they had abandoned. And that's why Elijah's first prophecy was so powerful. He declared there would be no rain until God said otherwise. It directly challenged Baal's supposed authority over the weather.
The drought wasn't just punishment, it was evidence. If Baal truly controlled rain, surely he could end the drought. But year after year, nothing happened.
Meanwhile, God cared for Elijah in extraordinary ways. First, ravens brought him food beside a brook. Later, God sent him to a widow in Zarephath, where her small supply of flour and oil lasted throughout the famine. Then came another miracle. The widow's son became seriously ill and died. Elijah prayed earnestly, and God restored the boy's life. It's one of the earliest recorded resurrections in the Bible.
That miracle reminds us that God's power isn't limited to nature. He has authority over life itself.
Eventually, God instructed Elijah to meet King Ahab again. That meeting led to one of the most dramatic moments in biblical history, Mount Carmel.
Elijah gathered the people of Israel along with hundreds of prophets of Baal. Then he asked a challenging question. How long will you hesitate between two opinions? In other words, stop trying to serve two masters. That question still speaks today. Many people want the blessings of God while allowing other things to control their hearts. The contest itself was simple. Two altars would be prepared. No one would light the fire. The God who answered by fire would prove himself to be the true God. The prophets of Baal went first. For hours they prayed, shouted, danced, and performed rituals, but there was complete silence. No voice, no fire, no answer. Then Elijah repaired the broken altar of the Lord using 12 stones. Those stones represented the 12 tribes of Israel, reminding everyone that despite political division, God still desired a united people. To remove any doubt, Elijah poured large amounts of water over the sacrifice. During a drought, that was an incredible act of faith.
Then Elijah prayed.
Notice how different his prayer was. It wasn't long or theatrical. He simply asked God to reveal himself so the people would know who the true God is. Immediately, fire came from heaven. It consumed the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, the dust, and even the water surrounding the altar. The people fell face down and declared that the Lord alone is God. It became a turning point in Israel's history.
One reason many historians find this account fascinating is because it fits what we know about the ancient Near East. Archaeological discoveries confirm the existence of King Ahab's dynasty, and ancient records show that Baal worship was widespread in neighboring kingdoms during that period. The Bible isn't presenting a fictional setting. It places Elijah in a real historical kingdom, facing real religious conflict, and Elijah himself is mentioned later throughout Scripture. The prophets referred to him, Jesus spoke about him, and both Moses and Elijah appeared with Jesus during the Transfiguration, representing the law and the prophets. That shows Elijah's lasting importance in biblical history. His ministry pointed people back to God and prepared the way for future generations of faith.
But here's what surprises many readers. Right after this incredible victory, Elijah became overwhelmed. Jordan.
When Queen Jezebel threatened to kill him, he ran into the wilderness. He felt exhausted, discouraged, and completely alone. It's comforting because it reminds us that even great people of faith experience emotional struggles. Having faith doesn't mean you'll never feel afraid. God's response is beautiful. He didn't criticize Elijah. Instead, he gave him food, rest, and encouragement before speaking to him through a gentle whisper instead of dramatic displays of power.
Let's connect Elijah's story to today. We probably don't bow before statues of Baal anymore, but modern idols still exist.
Money, popularity, success, social media validation, careers, entertainment. Anything that becomes more important than God can become an idol. Elijah also teaches courage. Standing for what's right often means standing alone. Whether you're at school, work, or even within your own family, following God's truth isn't always the popular choice. And there's another lesson. Don't judge God's presence only by dramatic moments. Sometimes His greatest work happens quietly through daily faithfulness, answered prayers, and steady obedience.
As we wrap up today's conversation, I think Elijah's story leaves us with one big question. Who or what are we trusting when life gets difficult? The people of Israel stood between two choices. They wanted the security they thought Baal could offer while still claiming to follow God. Elijah challenged them to stop living with divided hearts. That challenge still speaks to us today.
Absolutely. We may not build altars to Baal anymore, but our culture has its own modern idols. Success, money, social media popularity, relationships, careers, and even our own ambitions can slowly take the place that belongs to God. None of those things are wrong by themselves, but if they become the center of our identity or the source of our hope, we've given them a position they were never meant to have. Sarah.
Another lesson is courage. Elijah stood alone against hundreds of prophets because he cared more about God's approval than public opinion. That's incredibly relevant today. Whether you're a student facing peer pressure, an employee asked to compromise your values, or someone trying to live honestly in a world that often rewards shortcuts, Elijah reminds us that doing what's right isn't always easy, but it's always worth it.
And don't overlook Elijah's humanity. After one of the greatest victories in biblical history, he became exhausted, discouraged, and afraid. That tells us something important. Faith doesn't mean you'll never struggle. Even strong believers can experience fear, disappointment, or loneliness. The difference is that God doesn't abandon us in those moments. He meets us with grace, provides what we need, and gently restores our strength.
That's a powerful reminder. Sometimes we expect God to work through dramatic miracles like fire from heaven. But often He works quietly, through a timely conversation, an answered prayer, a verse that speaks to our hearts, the encouragement of a friend, or the strength to face another day. Just because God is quiet doesn't mean He is absent. Elijah also teaches us that one faithful person can make an enormous difference. He wasn't the strongest man in Israel, the richest, or the most influential politically. What made him extraordinary was his willingness to trust God completely. History is often changed by ordinary people who choose extraordinary faith.
So maybe the question for all of us is this: if God called us to stand for truth today, would we have the courage to do it? Would we trust Him when it's unpopular? Would we remain faithful when our prayers seem unanswered? Would we continue believing even when everyone else chooses a different path? Because at the end of the day, Elijah's story isn't really about proving how great Elijah was. It's about revealing how great God is. God showed that He alone controls creation, provides for His people, answers sincere prayer, and never abandons those who trust Him.
So, wherever you are today, whether you're celebrating a victory, walking through a difficult season, or searching for direction, remember Elijah's journey. The God who sustained him during the drought, answered on Mount Carmel, and comforted him in the wilderness is the same God who remains faithful today. He still calls ordinary people to live with extraordinary faith. Thank you so much for joining us on Deep Things of God. If this episode encouraged you, share it with a friend or family member who could use a reminder that faith, courage, and obedience still matter. Until next time, keep seeking truth, keep trusting God, and remember this. Your faith may seem small, but in the hands of a great God, it can have an impact far greater than you ever imagine. God bless you, and thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next episode.